Speaking of the Affordable Care Act, here is Donald Trump reacting to the finally went to a cemetery in the rain, wanted to prove I could do it. I just need a huge umbrella for my hair. But he this apparently was the weekend where all of the Trump officials were going to put their hair on the line to talk about the Affordable Care Act. And here is Donald Trump doing so, where he is bragging to people about the Affordable Care Act, which would being ruled unconstitutional.
Mr. President, comment on the court ruling.
Well, it was a big ruling. It's a great ruling for our country. We'll be able to get great health care. We'll sit down with the Democrats if the Supreme Court upholds. We'll be sitting down with the Democrats, and we will get great health care for our people. That's a repeal and replace, handled a little bit differently, but it was a big, big victory by a highly respected judge, highly, highly respected in Texas. And on the assumption that the Supreme Court upholds, we will get great health care for our people. We'll have to sit down with the Democrats to do it, but I'm sure they want to do it also. Thank you very much.
There you go.
They sure do.
I'm sure of it.
I have a lot of surety.
That's a big question about the Supreme Court upholding. We shall see. But it will get there eventually, without a doubt.
I say vote for a third
Is
party.
that top one? Okay. Here is Senator Amy Klobuchar. Could very well be also potential presidential candidate, right? Here she is talking about the Affordable Care Act lawsuit.
You just heard it, that basically is standing while the house is burning down, and instead of going in there and putting on the fire, they're throwing lighter fluid on it in terms of tweets and rhetoric and things they're saying. The ruling was absurd. Justice Roberts in a conservative court has already ruled that the Affordable Care Act is constitutional, unlike what Mr. Miller said, and in fact you can have part of it not exist, and you can still have the rest of it protect Americans. And that is exactly where this is headed. And I can say that this is about, first of all, throwing people off of their insurance, no protection with pre-existing conditions, kids staying on their parents' insurance till they're 26 years old, a very popular and important protection. Medicaid expanded for millions of Americans. That's what we're talking about here. And for them just to throw up their hands and say, well, it'd be great if we just started from scratch. That's not what the American people believe. Just look at the results from the last election.
Senator Barrasso, who was just here, said that he does think there's room for legislation to protect pre-existing conditions. One of the things that would get thrown out with this ruling if it's upheld. But
I just mentioned a number of other things that would also have to be done. So the best thing here...
But is there room for Democrats to work on those sort of issue-specific things?
There's always room to work on things, but the best way, and what I believe will happen, is this will be stayed in court, so it continues to take effect. Then it will go up on appeal. It will be upheld. But what we should be doing is governing from opportunity and not chaos. That means doing something about pharmaceutical prices and passing my bill to allow Medicare to negotiate for less expensive drugs for our seniors and letting less expensive safe drugs come in from other countries so that we can actually have competition. Doing something about premiums with reinsurance and some of the things going on in the states. So yes, there are things to do, but we should be working to improve the Affordable Care Act, not just throw it out and set it on fire.
You heard some disagreement among Republicans on how to do that. There's also disagreement within the Democratic Party on how to handle health care. Former Attorney General Eric Holder says it's time now to move to some version of Medicare for all and end this nonsense. That was his reaction to Friday's ruling. Do you agree with him?
We need universal health care, and there are many ways to get there. That is one of them. The other is to at least expand Medicare to age 55. There's a number of bills that I'm part of, including allowing the expansion of Medicaid, which I think is something we're not talking enough about, that Senator Schatz from Hawaii is leading. And then, of course, allowing for an expansion of Medicare. So there's many things we can do. But right now, with an administration in place that seems bound and determined to take away people's health care, we have to protect the ability of people to even have their health care exist, because they are talking about throwing them off for pre-existing conditions.
I'll tell you something. This is why you should gain a certain amount of encouragement from that segment. When Amy Klobuchar is having to defend her left flank on anything from Eric Holder, this is a good situation. When Eric Holder is going to pull Amy Klobuchar to the left on something, this is a good situation. And she's going to find, I can tell you this right now, we can see where this is going, right? She's going to find if she gets into the race, she is going to have to get there early. Like these games there's a lot of different ways to get to universal coverage. That's one element of what people want with a single payer. The reason why people want a single payer, right? Because for me, the material benefit of a single payer is not just that everybody has it. It's that it's going to be cheaper for me. It's not going to be tied to my job. It's not going to be tied to my income. It's not going to be something where I'm going to have to wrestle with health insurance companies all the time. I'm not going to have to, take a Skillshare class on accounting to get reimbursed if I go out of network. I'm not going to have to think about networks and this. It's going to be simplified significantly.
That's a huge, I think simplification is
simplification and
massively,
affordability.
Yes.
Universality, that's important for me as a citizen. But the universality is also what is going to allow me to get material benefits from a single payer system. Simplification of my life, confidence and security, less expense.
Also, I think what's interesting about Eric Holder coming out with that is because who's the woman interviewing her? I already forget her name. But she did that kind of annoying, well, why can't you just work with Republicans? Which is just nonsense and flies in the face of everything that we already know. But what I like is that now Medicare for All is part of the tsunami of searches for sound bites and awkward sentences that they're going to it's not even just the kind of what an interviewer is going to try to do to make somebody uncomfortable is not always just going to come from the right anymore.
Well,
either,
that's the point.
Which is hugely important.
She's using Eric Holder in this instance, but there's going to be literally a dozen other people running. And so Amy Klobuchar is going to be uncomfortable because she doesn't have that position.
So Sherrod Brown. Sherrod Brown's, triangulating like that too, and it's not going to be durable.
And what she said, did she say that Americans don't want us to start over with a whole new system, or is that something I just read online? Because...
Oh, no, that was in response to, be fair to her, that was in response to the Republicans trying to junk Obamacare, which is a little different than saying you oppose Medicare
fair enough.
for all.
But just to remind people, the vast majority of Americans at this point in time support Medicare for all. It's at 70%, according to this poll I found on CNBC. And that includes 85% of Democrats and 52% of Republicans.
And the thing is that I don't even know what that means. Start all over. I mean, there is no start all over. What? I don't even know what that means.
They're trying to pretend that your health care is going to get taken away and you're going to have a gap.
No, they're actually absolutely that's what they're lying about. But it's just even that I've noticed that talking point of we're all going to start over.
And I can understand if you
want
to
actually
avoid...
literally Medicare already exists.
Well, that's
and
the
it's
thing.
incredibly successful. So
you're not starting
and people switch to it.
Right,
people switch to it all the time.
People switch to it all the time. We're talking about expanding the most successful part of modern healthcare.
And the most successful part of the ACA, right?
It's the Medicaid
expansion.
And
That's
it is.
Medicaid.
Same thing, but same principle, I would say. Yeah, that is the most successful part of it. I mean, the consumer protections are hugely important, but they would all become irrelevant if we had a Medicare for all system because we wouldn't have private companies trying to screw people out of health insurance.